Hello, welcome to episode 7 of Expat Curious. My name's Adam Marsland, and for those of you that are joining me for the first time, this is a show that is directed at people that are considering, maybe in the early stages, of leaving their home country. And I, being American, this is mostly geared towards other Americans, but hopefully the advice contained herein will be useful to anybody that's considering making this kind of change. Now, it's been quite a long time since I have made an episode of this show, but I had every intention of cycling back to it when the timing seemed right. And even though that much time has gone by, it does seem like now is a time that this kind of a show is really needed. As I'm filming this, it is about 4 months prior to the 2024 election, and a lot of people in my home country, the United States, are very concerned about what might be the outcome of that election, what it might mean to them, and in numbers that I have never seen before. I'm seeing people saying that they are considering taking the step and leaving the United States. And I mean, I've seen this in many elections in the past, and mostly hasn't come to fruition. But this time certainly does feel different, and it feels different for me too. And so before we get into the main topic of this show, which will be the first episode of this series that's about how do you pay for this, I want to speak to the people that are thinking about this and are scared about the direction of the country and feeling that this is something that they might want to do. Is this something that I should do, and how do I do it? I monitor expat boards on Reddit and elsewhere, both for my own information and once in a while for this show. And there's a considerable amount of gatekeeping with the people that, like me, have been doing this for quite a while, and you get a newbie coming in and saying, well, how can I go and bring my dog and become a yoga instructor on Bali? And the answer is you can't, really. And it's such a naive question, it brings out the worst in the people that are answering it. And, you know, look, I went through that too. It's one of the places I first went was Bali, and I asked the same stupid questions, and I got the same snarky answers. That's just part of the process, and there's a good reason behind it, because the people that have already done this want to make sure that people don't take this step lightly, and that they don't proceed in such a risky and bold move without being properly informed about what it involves. But having said that, I want to assure those of you that are thinking about this possibility and thinking, am I crazy? Am I delusional? Is this something I should really do? I left after the 2016 election. That was not the reason I went. It wasn't like I had a lot of other reasons for doing it, and I was already thinking about it. But I was thinking, like a lot of you probably are, well, am I crazy? This is just kind of a wild move for a guy in his mid-40s to do. You know, just gonna, I had a fairly successful career as a music producer and doing some other stuff. I had some pretty deep friendships, and I was giving up a lot. And then the 2016 election happened, and all of the vague sense of unease I'd had about there's something wrong in my culture and my relationship to it, that all coalesced in that moment, and I realized, no, I wasn't crazy. This is something I needed to do. And now I didn't just go do it, and it took 9 more months of getting ready to go before I went. But it's one of the best decisions I ever made in my life. I've got a whole new life here in Southeast Asia that is much more fulfilling and interesting, especially for an older guy that just doesn't want to fade away and die, but would prefer to have a vibrant life for as long as I'm able to live it. So for those of you that need that little bit of encouragement that, no, I'm not crazy, I'm here to tell you, no, you're not crazy. But the thing we have to start getting you to think about is, what does this actually entail? And a lot of the episodes up to this point have been motivational. And what I've just told you is motivational. However, one of the reasons I felt an obligation to come back and do some more episodes of this series is I had teased talking about how do you pay for this? Like, how do you fund this? And I've had people look at what I've done and kind of wistfully say, well, if only I had enough money, blah, 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 blah. Like, yes, I have a few resources, but a guy that spent his whole life playing rock and roll, you're not gonna have that deep pockets. I mean, I'm probably in better shape than some of you, but I would venture to guess that most of you have more resources than I do, or at least as many. The thing that you have to start thinking about to make this move is you have to change your thinking about what those resources are, how you're going to use them, and what do you really need in your life to survive. And as we start talking about how you're going to finance your expatting, let's not call it a journey, let's not call it an adventure, your expatting plan. Let's call it a plan, because that's what you're going to need to do. You're going to need to figure out how to take whatever your advantages are in life and shift them around so that you can make this move. And so that's what this episode is about. Remember, I said that I made the decision to go, and then it was another 9 months before I actually left. And we're going to talk about what I did in those 9 months, and one of the most crucial parts of getting ready to part from your home culture, which is the process of downsizing your life and giving up things that you thought were central to your lifestyle and maybe even to who you are, because you will need to do that. To me, the biggest thing that you have to do, the first step that's the hardest, that they always like to talk about, is you have to think in terms of the things that you're going to be giving up. There's a lot you're going to be giving up psychologically. I can't tell you what that's going to be for you. I can tell you what it was for me. It was giving up my career, which I'd put a lot of years into, but also that I felt had reached a point where I'd kind of done everything that I could think of to do in that career, and there wasn't really anything left but a law of diminishing returns. There were friendships, things like that. Those are very big things. Your livelihood, your creative work, and the friendships that you've built over a period of decades. But you can hit a point with all those things where you're like, well, I can keep going in the same direction I'm going, or I can try something new. But the biggest thing you're going to need to do in terms of this concept of giving things up, well, I shouldn't say the biggest thing. I mean, maybe the emotional attachments to the things that you're leaving behind will be the biggest thing for you. But you will still have to downsize your physical possessions, unless you're going somewhere like Mexico, where you could probably take a U-Haul down there, but you're going to run into customs issues, and those are manageable. You know, that's another thing we can talk about another day. But you will have to deal with customs one way or another to bring the things that you will need to bring into a new country. The fewer things you have to move, the cheaper it's going to be. But also, it could really benefit you financially and set you up with a nest egg that you're going to need to make the transition to another country. And this is the main thing I wanted to talk about in this video. If you think about all the things that you need for your life, I use myself as an example. I was a professional musician for many, many years, so I had accumulated over the course of 30 years a massive amount of musical equipment that I could not take to Southeast Asia, nor would I want to, because some of it was pretty valuable and expensive stuff, and I didn't want it to be in a box getting shifted around the deck of an airplane, or being stuck in the humidity of a tropical summer, or what have you. You know, because the stuff was going to have limited value to me where I was going, because I wasn't going to be able to set up another studio anyway, not right away. It was too expensive to transport safely, so it was going to lose value if I took it. And if I really wanted stuff like that, I could figure out a way to probably get it once I was settled in and knew that was what I was going to be doing. So I had to make a very difficult decision, which is what do I sell, which was almost everything. You know, I have a couple of guitars that I kept, and a couple of microphones, and that's about everything. Everything else I had, I sold. And it took about 9 months to sell most of it, and then later, when I got stuck in the US for a little period during COVID, I was able to sell some more of it. But, you know, over 30 years, you know, with all that stuff, and some of it was worth quite a lot of money. Like, I had a couple of vintage keyboards that I bought back in the 80s when they were basically worthless because everyone had switched to synths, but they had since appreciated dramatically in value. And I had to spend some money getting those keyboards renovated, but I was able to realize, several $1,000s just off those 2 items. So all together, this sort of rolling garage sale that I had of all my musical stuff, it yielded enough money that I was able to live for about a year and a half. Obviously, most of you are not musicians and you don't have like guitars sitting around to sell, although some of you might be. But I'm sure you all have something. A couple of years ago, there was some guy that went on eBay and he sold everything he owned, like right down to the last, right down to the paper clips. It was a sort of a thing he was doing, and he was able to do it. And he was, I don't remember how much he made, but it was quite a bit of money, And the thing is, if you really leave it, not only will you not need this stuff, most of it, but it will be a millstone around your neck. The fewer things that you have to take with you in an uncertain transition, the better off you will be. Now, regardless of how you feel about the political situation in the United States and elsewhere, there's no question that we are heading into a very unstable and unpredictable period in world history. The fewer things you have to carry around with you as you decide what is going to be your place in this new world situation, the easier time you will have being nimble and flexible as you adjust to unpredictable new realities. So the downsizing concept, getting rid of the stuff that you got, as much of it as you can, in my opinion, is a crucial and hidden part of making the adjustment to becoming an expat or a digital nomad or however you want to execute this change so that you're no longer in your home country. This, to me, is the first and most crucial step. It is a difficult psychological thing to undergo because of what I just said. You have built a whole life, wherever you are, whoever you are, you have built a life there. Maybe it was satisfactory up until this point. Maybe it was always crap. I don't know what your life is like. But you've got stuff. You've got emotional stuff. You've got familiarity with the place that you've always been. And then you've got physical stuff. There will be a painful and difficult and time-consuming process to let go of all those things. But I think it's the most crucial part of this whole process, because if you can do it, first of all, you will, as I said, you will be more nimble when you're hitting an unpredictable situation. You will be less encumbered, so you can react to unpleasant surprises, and you will probably have a few. Let's say you get to the country that you thought you wanted to go and it is terrible, but you don't want to go back to the States. Well, you've got that much less stuff to wrangle onto a plane and get through customs in the next country you go to. If you do this right, if you go down a list of everything you've got and what the value of it is and who the market is for that, and you start selling it off, you're going to pile up a significant amount of money. I think more than you think. Like your car. Most of you watching have cars, right? Maybe they're not completely paid off, but if you got some money on it, you're not going to need a car probably where you're going. You can't take it anyway. So, and most countries have better public transportation situations than the United States, and even if they don't, you can build that into your moving plan so that you're living somewhere where you don't need a car to get around as much. So sell your car. Maybe that's $3,000, $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, depending what kind of car you drive. It's a bunch of money that you will probably not need a car where you're going. You might need a whole bunch of other stuff, but now like I said, you've shifted the allocation of your resources. So you have this thing you thought you needed in your old life. Well, you did need a car that cost X amount of money, and now you sell it, and now you put it to this allocation of your new life here where you're going to need something else that's not a car, right? So there's going to be a whole list of stuff like this, and as you go down it, you will start to pile up money. It's a one-time realization of income. It is not a substitute for cash flow, which we'll talk about another time. To survive over time, you need steady income. But to make a transition, you need lump sums. You need a significant amount of money, and here's one of the best ways to get it. I found great joy in this, and because it was hard giving up my favorite keyboards, my favorite guitars, and giving up a lot of other stuff, but I had a good conversation with myself about what do I really need. Like picking my favorite guitar. What was the one guitar that I was going to keep? How much was it going to help me make a living? What was the most irreplaceable guitar in a recording situation, et cetera, et cetera. So you will also need to make a separate list in your mind of all the things that you don't want to lose. And you're probably going to have to revisit that list quite a few times to get that whittled down further and further and further. And you can do this in steps, think of, because I did, there's some things I hung on to for a couple of years, until COVID. But you can start this process as soon as you're finished watching me do this video. Just make this list. What can I sell that I won't need? And you can make another list. What do I really not want to sell, but I could do it if I have to? And then the things that you want to keep. And put a price tag on all of it. Like, what do you think you can get for it? Go on eBay, see what something like that is selling for. And the great thing about this process is, I knew that I wanted to go to Asia for so many reasons. And the very first thing I did when I got back from that Asia trip where I made up my mind, because I was over here for 3 months at that time. And when I got back, I stayed up all night the first night back, boxing things up and getting them ready to sell, because I just wanted this to happen so bad. And moving forward in this process of downsizing and selling things off gave me a project that made me feel like I was moving forward on this goal, and I was making clear progress every day, because I knew it was going to take quite a while for me to close off my life and get everything ready to come over here. And it did. Like I said, it was 9 months before I was ready to go. But every day of those 9 months, I was working on going. And I felt like, yes, I'm on this project. It's not like this thing that's going to happen someday. It's never going to happen, it's the pie in the sky. No, I'm working on it every day. And so for those of you that are in this beginning spot and you're wondering, can I do this? And you're freaking out, where do I start? Start with this. Make a list of everything you've got and figure out every possible thing you can sell, and make the smallest possible list of the things you can't live without. And the wonderful thing I've discovered about doing this, because I'm still somewhat mobile, like I've been living in Cambodia, but I had a couple of things shift in my life 4 weeks ago, and I just said, screw it, I'm going back to the Philippines. I just need a break. And I was able to do that. I had a friend who was kind enough to take all the crap that I've accumulated in Cambodia, because that does tend to happen once you get settled in again. You will have more crap to upsize to and downsize to again. But the point is, from having done this for quite a few years and having moved between countries a number of times, I know pretty much the things I need. And it's not much. I need like I'll point the camera here. I have a really old laptop that's got all of the software I need. I've got these portable iLoud speakers that allow me to do studio mixes and high quality music projects, but it's small enough for me to fit in a suitcase. I've got my CPAP machine because I have sleep apnea. Obviously, your cell phones, your credit cards, your passport. Backups of things. You need to have you need to have backups of your files. You need to have backups of some of your financial stuff. Clothes that fit, especially shoes and T-shirts and stuff, because I'm a big guy. And that's it. I remember there was a couple of years ago, I was staying in a condo in this country, down in Cebu, and we had a fire alarm. And the first thing I did was make up my mind not to run out the door that second, because if you're in a foreign country and you run out the door with nothing but your underwear, and you didn't take your passport, and you didn't take your money, and you didn't take your laptop, you may die. It's not a good move. It's worth taking the extra minute to gather that stuff up, and I did. And in 90 seconds I was out the door. And when I got down, waited to see if this was a false alarm or not, and it was. I was thinking about, what if this was a real fire? What am I going to lose? And the answer was not much. I kind of got everything I need right here in this knapsack, because that's all I did. I threw it all in a knapsack. And that was a real clarifying moment. And that is the benefit of this downsizing process, is you realize these are the critical things, these are my critical needs. These are the things that I have to survive, and if I have them with me anywhere I go, I'm going to be okay. And in a chaotic and uncertain world and when you're making a risky move like this, that is a superpower. And the more you can move your life towards that moment when you can tie it all up and put it in a satchel and put it over your shoulder and go, the easier it's going to be. Now, a lot of you can't do this. You got a significant other, you got kids. I get that. So there's going to be gradations of how much that you can accomplish this. But I think the basic concept is the same for everybody. If you want to make this big of a move, you need to unencumber yourself of all the things as best you can that are tying you to your home country. Now, there's a few things you don't want to get rid of. I still have an American phone, and I pay to keep it up because it just makes my life much easier for things like bank verifications or if I got to call up and complain to customer service. And there's ways to do that that are fairly inexpensive. You still want to maintain an American address, or your life's going to be vastly more complicated. A couple things: you don't want to give up your citizenship unless you're absolutely sure. That's the last step. You don't need to cut ties with those things, but you need to start the process of assessing what you have in your life that you don't need and figure out how you can monetize those things and use that money to finance the move. And tide over this transition, which is going to be unpredictable and expensive. But I bet a lot of you that are thinking, I don't know how I would ever get the money to make a move overseas, aren't even thinking about, well, I can sell my car, I can sell my bracelet, you're not going to need this stuff. Most of it you're not going to need, and some of the stuff you think you need, you don't need. And that's if you're giving up your home, the life you have always known, and you're not coming back, you don't need this stuff. And even if you are coming back, find someone to keep the stuff that you can't bear to be parted with. I have someone that keeps some stuff for me back in LA, but every time I go back, I try to get rid of some more of it. Got old photos, digitize them. That's what I did. And then during the pandemic when I was locked down, this was one of the projects that I hadn't had time to do when I first left, and so went through all my old cassettes, went through all my old photos, everything got digitized, and I either gave it away or threw it away. And it's tough because here's a cassette tape of me when I was 15 writing this song, and I'm gonna throw it in the garbage. Because that's the thing about getting older is you realize, so much of this stuff only means something to you. And, if I turn out to be like a lost Beethoven of my time, and years from now people want to come back and look at my career in some way, then yeah, maybe that stuff will be important. But even then, that's their problem, not mine, really. There's still plenty of my crap running around. They don't need the cassette of me doing a bad song when I'm 15. It only has value in my mind. As a part of my life, I don't want to give up. But you're giving up one of the biggest and most central things to you, which is the place you grew up, the country that you called home for your whole life. So to make this transition, this is going to be a part of it. Like what you give up, what you downsize, and a lot of that stuff that you think is central to who you are, that your keepsakes, things like that. Have a long talk to yourself. Do I really need this stuff? And like I said, if it's something you can't bear to be parted with, then maybe you can leave it behind with somebody. But if it's something of value, if you're really serious about leaving, sell it. Unless it's something you're going to be able to use to make a living or maintain your lifestyle overseas or wherever you decide to go. What's the use of hanging on to it? Unless you think you're just going to go for a couple of years and come back, and then it's just a different conversation. But, a lot of the people that are having this discussion with themselves and their loved ones right now see and feel that something has fundamentally changed in America and possibly in the world, and they're asking themselves, is this my home anymore? And if that's how deeply you feel about things, this is a step you got to take. Downsize your life, monetize it, and move. Everybody that's been alive on this planet has accumulated something. And that something is something that you can barter and use to finance your move. And think in terms also of how long this will take to accomplish, because a lot of people are thinking they're using the election as this benchmark, like, well, I got to figure out a way to get out of here before the election happens or before a new president is inaugurated. However you fall down on that side of things in my country. Think about how long this will take to accomplish, because this was not a short process for me. You know, I spent 9 months between doing that and piling up as much money working as I could, and I wasn't able to get it all done. I got it done as much as I could, and then I took off, and then when COVID happened, I did the rest of it. But if you're thinking you want to get out by January 2025, you know, if you are watching this at the time it's airing, you better get cracking, right? So if you're serious about going and you really want to do this, as soon as you're done watching this video, why don't you sit down, make that list of all the things you've got in your life and figure out how you're going to sell it, get rid of it, give it away, but preferably monetize it and use that to form the basis of your nest egg for your big adventure leaving the country. And that's about it. So thanks for watching, and as always, like and subscribe, and I'll be back hopefully soon with more information for you.